Welcome to the Women in Vinyl podcast with Jenn DiEugenio, founder of Women in Vinyl, and contributor Robyn Raymond. This podcast facilitates conversations with those working in the vinyl record industry to educate, demystify, and diversify the vinyl community.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the Women in Vinyl podcast. We are back.
We did on our summer vacation.
Oh, what did we do? Just moved all over the place, had some surgeries. You produced a massive show.
Whatever. We have lofty goals here at the Women in Vinyl podcast. Not only global domination, but also reproductive rights. Weird.
Funny how those go hand in hand. Yeah.
But you went right into the belly of the beast, though, bud.
Yep. Moved. Yep. We are in Austin now. Women in Vinyl will be headquartered here now, which, it's Texas, so that's kind of meh. But Austin's awesome, and, we'll have lots of musical opportunities, hopefully, so that'll be cool.
Yeah, I haven't had a chance to visit Austin yet, but now I have a whole other incentive to be there.
Exactly. And now that I'm working at Gold Rush...
Oh, what?
We have
You changed jobs too?
Yeah. And it's fully women-run, women-owned by Karen Kelleher, who we had on the podcast. She's fantastic.
Friend and sister of the pod.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
good things. It's a little crazy, but good stuff.
Just as we were saying right before we started recording, all of the crazy starts to happen right before all the good stuff. So
exactly.
Much like you, I moved as well.
Yeah.
Haven't had an official announcement, but it's been trickling onto socials for those people that care to follow my stupidity online. I moved from Toronto back to my home province of Alberta to decrease the cost of overhead so that I can keep the cost of records where I like it. I feel like it's an ethical responsibility.
Doing it for the people.
Doing it for the people, and doing it for the people that haven't toured and haven't played in a couple of years because of this weird thing that we had called the pandemic.
Right.
That we try not to mention on the pod very often. But yeah, I just figured cost of living is really high in cities. Do I want to increase my prices just to justify staying in Toronto, or is there a potential to move back to this really thriving, awesome place that I really love and has a really incredible growth thing happening right now in Calgary? And it was also labeled number 3 place in the world to live. So
people might not know how intensive it is to move your lathe and the business and everything. So I think, go support Robyn. Buy records.
Yeah. But don't, because I've closed my book for the year because it's too much. Stop supporting me.
That's actually a good segue, though, because we wanted to talk about some of the things that have been going on while we've been doing all of the things in our personal lives. And, turn times are still crazy.
Mm-hmm.
For the lathe community, for pressing, everywhere.
Yeah, let's see. So let's do a back mask and wicka put it back to when you guys packed your boxes and I packed my boxes. So we packed our respective record collections into boxes and trucks, and I moved at the end of May and you guys moved
July.
Yeah. So when you were leaving Furnace, what was your turnaround time projected to be then?
So they're booked into the beginning of next year, or they were when I left, and they weren't able to take on any new customers because they wanted to make sure they could service all the people that have been their clients for a while.
Right.
Now that I'm at Gold Rush, we're booking 8 to 10 months out still. So, yeah. What about you?
So I put a little note up on my own website that says that any orders taken after August 15th will be pretty much produced and delivered in January.
Yeah.
That kind of gives me a little bit of space to do some things and like honor some projects where I'm waiting for materials and things like that, which has been kind of a crisis, but not a supply chain crisis, more so people didn't have their art together or their masters together, or I've had to send things back for remastering because it's just like not cuttable in the way that it was provided to me, which is not my favorite, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I've done some pretty cool projects since landing back here, which is cool. But yeah, I mean, it's that turnaround time thing is real.
Like, yeah.
People still thinking that, you know, just because I'm doing shorter runs that I can get them done for September 1. And I'm like, no, sorry, bud. Can't do it.
Yeah.
Even
and
December.
Now more than ever, like, it's so important to have all your stuff done ahead of time and correctly. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's kind of like a in pressing or in lathe cutting, and I can't profess to speak for the entire lathe cutting community when I say this, but like having everything sent together at the same time rather than here's our art and now here's this and then in 2 weeks here's a master and things like that. It just, a cascade of information is not as helpful as just having all of your things together. And just because you're being put and you're being told that you're in the queue for September doesn't mean to wait and hold your things back until September.
Oh, yeah. Mm-mm.
And
definitely.
Yeah, I think for me, it's becoming very apparent that I need to make maybe more documentation that goes out to illustrate and educate some people on process and deliveries and things like that, because I'm at kind of a tipping point with the amount of time that I can spend on administration and
Yes.
the amount of time I can spend cutting records, which is, you know, what I want to be doing.
Right.
Yeah.
I completely agree, which is part of why we're here. So go listen to our episodes so you have your stuff together.
And any questions that anybody has, as always, send them in. We love to be able to help. But when there's existing information,
use it.
Which
which we've talked about, you know, for the rest of the year, and I mean future too. No. Sort of doing some industry mythbusters things, because you know,
lots of stuff happening in the sphere right now, which is, I mean, hysterical and educational at the same time.
Exactly. I mean, all the time we spent driving to our new locations, we're listening to podcasts, relevant things within the industry, seeing a lot of misinformation and hearing a lot of misinformation out there. So, you know, we're not like be all end all, of course, but we're talking to our industry friends to get everybody the right info so that you have the tools to know when things are true or false or misleading, scandals.
Intentionally falsified, potentially obscured, diffused. Oh, let me get up a thesaurus here, and we'll have some. We'll use some colorful language. I mean, that's the thing, right? Because like, as technology changes, as supply chains change, and
lead times
change, like music in general is always kind of a flexy space. But when we start to get into physical product, there's, you know, people are trying to innovate to, you know, to decrease turn times, but to also be more eco-friendly and, you know, meet the demands that the global community is placing on us. But we also, it's a moving target for everybody, and you know, information changes, and we want to be on top of it so that we're not giving out bad information, but also so that we're informed for our customer base too.
Exactly.
Not just the Women in Vinyl customer base, but our own personal customer bases. And so we understand our own record collections because those are growing and moving and changing as well. So
yeah,
some of the things that we're going to talk about are a little bit controversial, but not our controversy, more like industry wide. So
and one of those things we thought we should bring up for today was the big Mofi scandal.
Yes.
So what happened?
So I don't feel like it's that scandalous because maybe my expectation is, I don't know, different because of what I do. Mm-hmm. And so that's like, my heart actually goes out to Mofi because this shouldn't be something that they have to address.
Because they're making records how you make records.
They're making records how you make records. And that's it. So, I mean, we love you, Mofi. If anybody wants it, Jim, if you're listening, you want to come on the pod and chat about the statement or, anything related to Mofi, we would love to have you. We're also taking sponsorship applications anytime. So we would be happy to have that as well. And we're going to have a little bit more of a focused mastering kind of conversation on this particular topic with some people later on in the podcast. But the official statement is, quote, "We at Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab are aware of customer complaints regarding the use of digital technology in our mastering chain. We apologize for using vague language, allowing false narratives to propagate, and for taking for granted the goodwill and trust of our customers' place in the Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab brand," unquote. So to break it down, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, because you're not maybe Mofi enthusiasts, there was a section of record buyers, collectors, enthusiasts that thought that Mofi had a completely analog mastering replication chain.
And maybe at some point that was true. Maybe at some point from the initial tapes.
Yeah, totally. Which is a beautiful thing. We all love direct from tape. Love it.
And a quick plug to our friend Lenice Bent. She just put out a record of her own that is direct from tape. So people still do it. It's definitely something that you can do.
Yep. Our good pals, friends of the pod at Welcome to 1979, do lots of tape stuff as well. Shout out to Black Belt Mastering. Levi Seitz does incredible direct from tape, half speed masters all the time too.
Yep.
So we're tape enthusiasts here at the Women in Vinyl podcast. But we also understand that there is a limited amount of tape out there. And tape is very fragile. Some tapes are very, very old. Some tapes cannot be rehabilitated, no matter how many times you put them in a dehydrator and put Scotch tape all over them, soak them in all kinds of weird solutions and chemicals, bath bombs. I don't know.
Well, and I think even if you record it, if you went from tape to tape, the logistics of every single time you're putting out a new reissue to cut from tape, I mean, again, like I don't cut, but like it seems like not something that they would do, considering that you have to cut again, plate again, go through the whole process again.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Like once the tape transfer has been done to digital, that can go to numerous cutters.
Yep.
To facilitate a quicker turnaround to be able to create the records that everyone is so hungry for. Exactly. Rather than shipping very fragile tape that might not ship well. Maybe it catches on fire. Who knows?
And then it's lost.
And it's lost forever. So it's like a balance of understanding of the medium and then a balance of understanding of time and appetite and things like that as well, which is where I think that we need to give Mofi a little bit of credit because they do put out an exceptional product all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So why do we care? is, I think, my biggest question. And why did people think that it was not possible to get great sounding, beautiful sounding music from a digital master?
Right. Yeah. I think, you know, maybe some people feel, to play devil's advocate, that the marketing,
Yeah.
you know, but, you know, I was talking to Ray about it too. And, you know, he says on some of the releases that he has from them, it does say in certain instances that they pulled from digital audio for certain tracks. So, you know, I think that that would be telling in and of itself, but I understand that people feel misrepresented or misled.
I mean, I feel like that's a very small percentage that we usually rally against here on the podcast, being that we love you, audiophiles, but we don't understand you. I don't know that I'll ever find common ground with autophilia because it just too snobby for me, man.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a bitchin' sounding record and just be like, radical, rather than be like, oh, and then this is taken directly from the tapes and like blah blah. Like I don't even organize my records. We've been down this road 100,000 times. So the rest of the statement for Mofi, and for those of you that do want some more clarity, quote, we recognize our conduct has resulted in both anger and confusion in the marketplace. Moving forward, we are adopting a policy of 100% transparency regarding the provenance of our audio products. We are immediately working on updating our websites, future printed materials, and packaging, as well as providing our sales and customer service representatives with these details. We will also provide clear, specific definitions when it comes to Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab marketing, branding, such as original master recording, OMR, and Ultra Disc One Step, UD1S. We will backfill source information on previous releases so Mobile Fidelity Sound Lab customers can feel as confident in owning their products as we are in making them, unquote. I mean, I really hope that people aren't taking their records out and like throwing them in the garbage or like burning them, or, you know, I feel like there's so many great titles on the Mofi catalog that, I mean, nobody has complained about, like, literally nobody had anything to say about them until somebody was like, wait a minute, are these from digital? And then like, poor Jam Davis has to run to his computer and be like, oh my God, like everybody I feel like in the mastering making world was kind of just like, well, duh.
Right.
So is that a case of people just, you know, not understanding how records are made? Or is that a case of misinformation? I mean, is it omission? Or is it just like they thought that maybe everybody understood that that's where they were coming from and they didn't have to say anything?
Right.
I feel like it's more of that.
Yeah.
No. So, Mofi, we love you. You're doing a great job. Digital or analog or both. Hey, maybe it's a blend. Delightful.
Exactly.
Delightful. Yeah. We're here for it. But as always, write in media@womenandvinyl.com. Let us know how you're feeling about it.
Yeah. Give us your perspective.
You can hit us up on the anonymous as well if you want to rail against the Mofi machine. Sure, let us have it. We are here for you. We're happy to explain anything that we can. You know, I am going to delve farther into the Ultra Disc One Step. I want to know more about that just as an enthusiast.
Sure.
But yeah, so, you know, maybe that's a little bit of homework for us here on the pod. We're gonna, you know, maybe we'll keep revisiting this as things keep rolling out from Mofi, and we'll be able to tell you more about where your records are coming from.
Yeah.
Because we love doing that.
The other thing we did that's also sort of controversial is we went, well, us going to Music Biz was not controversial. However, there are a lot of pressing plants.
Was it
Thank you, Music Biz, for having us. Shout out, we love you. We, you know,
had a great time.
Yeah, had a great time. Saw a lot of familiar faces. We did a panel to talk about what we do here. And on one of the Record Store Day town halls, someone stood up and was very, you know, adamant about the fact that Nashville record pressing and all of these other pressing plants are opening up to now alleviate capacity issues. And that's another thing that I think we'll dive into more throughout the end of the year and into next. But Robyn stood up and voiced the opinion of most of us that work in the industry that that's not going to solve the problem. So,
yeah, I mean, I like that we all get along for the most part, but, and I will say, like, I have the flexibility to be able to not have a master to slap my hand when I get spicy. So I try and limit those times to like a seasoning in a stew, or there's salt being applied judiciously. I feel like sometimes somebody has to speak up when somebody is saying something that is definitively false. And that person has put into the global sphere like a counterintuitive narrative that was completely false.
Yep.
And you could kind of feel, maybe this is just me, you could totally check me on this one too, Jen, but I could feel the other people in the room that made records at this record store day town hall, I could feel them collectively be like, like this is wrong. And nobody wanted to stand up, maybe because they're shy, maybe because they like to keep their jobs, I don't know. But this guy stood up and was like, oh yeah, well, with 6 new pressing plants opening in Nashville, like the backlog will be alleviated, da 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 da. And I just had it at that moment, and I was like, no. So I asked for the microphone, and I looked at him and I said, I'm really glad that you think that, but that's wrong. And here's why.
Yeah.
And so we talked about, or I guess I got on my little soapbox, and I talked about the numerous places of log jams throughout the supply chain, and that now you're asking for, and like the comfortable estimate is over 600 qualified pressing operator jobs to be added in one market.
Yep.
Which is insane.
It's impossible. I mean,
it's impossible.
It's a trade, right? And there's nobody trained to do it. And if
you don't just rock up and you're like, oh, yesterday I was a sandwich artist, today I'm going to make records, like this.
Right. And I mean, if the pressing plants and organizations that are already active there have a hard time finding qualified people, and everyone wants to complain about their quality, then how do we expect more pressing plants to open and boom, alleviate the logjam with quality records? It's just not feasible.
More pressing plants to add increased demand on stamper production, which increases demand on cut lacquers or cut metal, which increases demand on mastering engineers, of which
lacquer supply.
I mean, don't even get us started on the lacquer supply, but that's the things that this guy just didn't understand. And I know that he has talked to the people that know these things, so I was very confused.
Right.
But he's also one of the people that was like, oh, Adele and Taylor Swift are responsible for everything in the vinyl space being totally backed up, which, as we debunked earlier and later last year with the sweet and beautiful and talented Billy Fields, where we broke down the per unit ability of the existing supply chain to meet the demand, the global demand.
Right. You know, again, there's only MDC right now making lacquers. Yep. That's, one place. And we're not saying that we don't think new pressing plants should open up. We definitely do. We're going to talk to some pressing plants this year, both new and old. But, with that, you have to think through everything else, which is why Women in Vinyl exists. We want to create job opportunities. We want to get people excited about this sooner so that qualified people can come in and take over these jobs. But right now, as it stands, you can't just plop a plant somewhere and be like, boom, capacity alleviated.
Yeah, they're not one-stop shops. They don't that's not how it works.
No,
So,
I mean, every time a new machine lands somewhere, it takes a while to get it plumbed in, working correctly. Like, yeah.
there's so many moving parts to a record press.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of whether it's an automatic or a manual, there's still a person that needs to look after the care and feeding of that machine.
Yep.
So, I mean, and it's mechanical stuff, man. Like, not everything works right out of the box.
Right. Boiler infrastructure, pressure, like
Temperature,
mm-hmm.
like there's so many things.
Yeah.
I mean, adding another thing into an existing system, that will change the overall pressure that the boiler can put out to the rest of the machines. So it's not just like one machine that's getting affected, it's your entire chain of machines too.
Yep.
So I'm just glad that upon relinquishing the microphone after my little soapbox moment, the people that press records that were there or were involved in supply chain came up and said, I'm so glad you said that. Thanks so much. And I felt like champion of the people at that point. And I was like, okay, I'm not clueless, so that's good.
To your point about people feeling comfortable to be able to speak up, we should definitely mention again our anonymous opportunity, because it truly is anonymous, and we do want people to feel heard. And it's like, we aren't techie enough to be able to track your IP address or anything like that, so I can assure you we don't have any of that information. And I think that those viewpoints are really important. So please go to our resources on the website. Fill anything out you're feeling, both wins or things that you're frustrated with, and we will share them.
Yeah, I mean, and I actually, like, with reflection and time and all that kind of stuff too, I feel really blessed to be able to speak to that and give platform and all that stuff, but also to check my own bullshit. I feel good about that. To be like, okay, yeah, no, like, if my language or marketing or anything is hurtful to someone or anything like that, absolutely check me on my shit. I love it. Please do.
And as an industry, we have to do that. So yeah, and if you don't feel comfortable because of your job or your boss or whatever, we want to give you that platform to do it.
With that, we would love, if anybody has vinyl mysteries, we would love to do some sleuthing for you.
Yeah.
We're excited about things like that. So lay it on us. I guess this is season 2, huh?
Yeah.
So welcome to season 2. We've been kind of focused for the last season because it was our beginning. So we wanted to have like very regimented capsule type offerings where we're like, here's how you put out a record. And now here's some like other information and stuff. Here's the process. Which is a great foundation. Now we're going to dive in on some other things. We're going to talk about controversies. We're going to talk about some hot takes with the people that wrote them.
Yep.
Which is awesome. There's some people that are educators that are doing some things to like get more people in the industry that are going to come on. I mean,
people leading the way, starting up. Yeah. All kinds of stuff.
There's some cool stuff happening in season 2. So click that subscribe button. Click the Patreon.
Yep. Please check out the job board. Like we've been talking about, we can't expand the industry if people aren't excited and getting into it. We've got some real cool stuff up there, both pressing plants, Beggars Group. So yeah, take a look at it. If you are a company listening and want to post a job, it's free. Just email us info@womeninvinyl.com.
Yeah, free posting. Free.
Yes.
Thanks, dudes. We'll talk to you in a couple weeks, guys.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us on the Women in Vinyl podcast. You can join our ever-growing list of sponsors. Other record labels: Selector, Couple Design, Eargasm, Groove Washer, Glowtronics, New Gen Audio, and Vinyl Revolution Record Show. And thanks for sponsoring the show. Hey, as always, you can join our conversation on Instagram or send us a note at media@womeninvinyl.com. Clock us. Send us info. If you have a question, we got the answer, or we'll find it. We won't lie to you. And check out womeninvinyl.com for past episodes, the store, the job board, and the library of resources. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give us a review on your favorite podcast delivery method. You can also contribute to furthering our mission at patreon.com/womeninvinyl. Hey, guess what? This episode, 45 minutes. You know there was more. You want more? You get more. Go to patreon.com and you can get more. And you'll find all the B-sides, the deep cuts, and the amazing extras, including longer episodes, and contribute to the creation of scholarships and educational opportunities to further the demystification, the infiltration of more women and non-binary identifying humans into the vinyl making space, decreasing those turnaround times every week. Yeah, we love your records. We want you to love them too. womeninvinyl.com.
This episode has been brought to you by Women in Vinyl and Red Spade Records. Thank you for listening. Please remember to subscribe, and you can always contact us directly by visiting www.womeninvinyl.com.